Welcome to Life with Jason, episode 106, Reliving Trauma. I felt that this episode would coincide or complement the last video that I put out called Triggers. And I apologize in advance, or I apologize now for not producing a video last week. As I was in Florida and I wasn't prepared enough to record a video in advance while I was there. But here I am. And here we are. So join me. So what is it about reliving trauma that can present life to be even extra challenging, more so than it already is? Many of us have experienced some form of trauma in our lives. And sometimes we may not have even realized or recognized that we have experienced this trauma because it's so subtle. And what is the result of this trauma that happens that causes us to go into cycles that may hold us back from our true potential in life? Trauma comes in many forms. It can come in the form of serious physical abuse, physical actions from an extreme source, such as a violent offense towards somebody, or a violent offense that was experienced from somebody, to something more subtle that a lot of people may not even see it or recognize it as an abuse or an abusive situation that has caused deeply ingrained emotional trauma. And that's the challenging part in itself right there, is sometimes when it's the overt form, such as being in an abusive, I should be cautious on this one. You know, where it's a physical offense that happens like right now in the moment, it's high intensity and very traumatic. Such as being robbed at gunpoint, or being abused in a sense of being raped, where you are physically harmed in a process of that. It could be a physical beating, being abused by a physically abusive person who overpowers you in some way. And so those are kind of what the more overt forms of trauma are. And those can have huge psychological effects because depending on what type of the event was, whenever something comes in close proximity to all the triggers around you, you may react in some way. You become frightened and fearful. And you go into these emotional reaction type responses. And every time those same things happen, you have the similar response. And so every time you hear a noise or something like that, you get this trigger and you're reliving these moments over and over and over in your life. And those are the easy ones to kind of see. And they're not easy to heal. But then there's the ones that are the not so overt ones. The ones where you grow up and you're treated as somewhat of an outcast, but you're still treated as if you're part of the whole. And so you're left feeling like you're no valuable. You're not good enough. You're isolated. And so you have a hard time trusting people because you're replaying these scenarios in your mind over and over again of all the times that you were neglected in some way, that you were cast aside. You didn't receive any physical abuse, but there's still a lot of emotional damage there. It could be the way that the person talked to you, that in a condescending tone that just made you feel like that you have no value. And so it was something that was built up over time. And so every time you hear somebody speak, or you hear a tone of voice, or you are coming around that person, something triggers inside of you and you relive those moments in your life over and over and over again. It's not a nice place to be in. And it doesn't matter how these traumas come into place. I think about how our government and the media produce the situation of trauma on society as a whole over the years of COVID, telling us repeatedly on the air, through radio, through TV, through media, that all this stuff was going on, and they just kept drilling it and drilling it and drilling it into our heads, and they kept pushing fear, 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 fear. That created a very emotional and very traumatizing experience for a lot of people in this world that are fearful of things because of what was being told. And so every time that somebody gets sick, every time that somebody has even a mild symptom, these people become fearful. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And they relive these moments and these numbers and these things that were said over and over repeatedly are running through their minds. So they relive this stuff. They may have lost a loved one through this experience, which amplifies the effects. Because now there's something real there, there's something tangible. Somebody's life that they valued is no longer present with them in the physical sense in this world. And so they relive these things in their minds over and over again. And then you think about during that COVID era for those people who lost loved ones in the hospital, who weren't able to actually be with their loved one at that time because of the mandates that were put in place. And so they're reliving these moments. Oh man, I wish I could have been there with them. I wish I could have been there with them. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even be there with them in those last moments. That's trauma. And they relive these moments in their mind over and over and over again. and it crushes them. And so I want to acknowledge all of you out there today who are listening to this video or watching it. For those of you who are reliving these traumatic experiences, I just want you to know that I love you and my heart goes out to you. Because it doesn't matter on what end of the spectrum you are in this trauma response. You're feeling it every day. You're walking with it all the time. And it's painful. It hurts. And you're probably wondering, oftentimes, why? Why does this keep circulating through my mind? Why am I constantly reliving this? Why, when something happens, I automatically go back to this story? I wish I had a simple answer. I wish at times that I can just snap a finger and it'll be all gone for you. And people say, be careful what you wish for. Yeah, there's truth to that. But there is also truth that there are answers. There is hope for you and for those who are experiencing this every day. And for those of you who don't necessarily experience it every day, but it's a regular part of their life. So they're starting to see a little bit of the light on the other side of it. But when it hits them hard. It's almost like a wrecking ball. So why? Why did you have to experience that? Why does it keep role-playing in your mind? What can you do about it? What I've found that has worked in my life is to stop giving it power. What do I mean by stop giving it power? See, the more you fixate on something, the more power and control it has on you. The more you give airtime to that trauma that you experienced, the more it's going to be present with you. The more you play those stories in your mind and you're recounting the minute details of the situation, the more it's going to haunt you. You see, you can't change the past. You can't. It was there, it happened, it's done, it's over. And it doesn't... And so because that can't change, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It very well did happen. You very well did experience it. But you don't have to keep re-experiencing it. Sometimes people think that the more they talk about it, the more that they go through it, the more they find these details of it, that they'll find a solution or find an answer to why it may have happened. And there might be some truth to that. There might be. But the answer may not be what you think it is. And sometimes by replaying it in your mind over and over and over again, you start implanting false memories into the experience. And you're like, Jason, how can that be? It's because you're lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself about what happened. Because usually people who are reliving trauma are trying to blame themselves for something that isn't theirs to blame them. If you understand what I'm saying. You're not to blame. You may have made a mistake. You may have participated in some way. You may have been doing something that did cause, indirectly or directly, the loss of someone's life. Because you guys were goofing around playing with something that you shouldn't have been playing with. Or doing something that you shouldn't be doing with, knowing that there was a bit of a danger, but deciding to do it anyways. And somebody lost their life as a result of that. And so you were playing the scenario in your mind over and over and over again. Because what if I would have done it differently? What if I would have just said no? This person would still be here today. Are you sure about that? Are you really sure about that? You see, you may have extended that person's life for a moment, but something else may have happened because it was their time to go. You see, we don't have the answers as to when our time is going to be here and when our time is going to move on to the next part of our lives. And yes, I do believe in life after death. I do believe in life outside of this physical realm that we are in right now. And sometimes people even question, is this realm even physical? That's for a different video. And so, does it really help to relive that experience over and over again, trying to find the details, to maybe come up with an answer that may have played out differently when the event is already over and done with? That loved one, that friend, that person who lost their life is already on the other side, living life that way, not wanting you or trying to speak to you and say, hey, I'm okay, I'm on the other side, I'm doing great, I'm surrounded by the people that I love. Boy, that was stupid, wasn't it? I guess we learned a lesson, didn't we? But I'm thankful I'm here. I love you. I don't want this pain that you're feeling all the time over this event to be what you're feeling all the time. If I could speak to you right now, I would say that I love you. I'm here. I'm okay. All's good. Move on with your life. But we don't always hear that. We don't always want to accept that because there's a part of us that wants to punish ourselves. And why is that? Guilt, shame, regret. Those are powerful tools of the enemy that wants to see you suffer, that doesn't want to see you live the full life that you can live. Those are tools of an enemy that wants to see you suffer, gets joy off of seeing you suffer. So I say there's hope. I say that you can be free. And no, it isn't always easy to turn those voices off. It's not always easy to stop midway through the replay of the story in your mind. But you can do it. You can do it. You can say, I'm sorry, or I'm done. But what is there to be learned from these experiences? What is there that can be so different? Why are some people seem to find it easier to navigate these challenges while others seem to go on for years? I've done that myself. I've relived traumas myself, years, playing them over and over and over in my head. And there's times where those stories want to continue to creep back into my life. And I have to say no. I learned from that. I learned that I could have said something differently. So next time, when the moment arises, I'll take that opportunity to say something differently. I learned that there could have been something I could have done to not put myself into that situation. And instead of not putting myself into those situations out of fear, I look at it differently and say, okay, I'm coming up to a situation that's similar. I have the opportunity to experience something that could be great. But now, I can go about it differently. Instead of being alone, walking down the street at this time, I can have friends with me. Instead of, going to the extreme of, taking it to that next little bit further, I can say, you know what? This is fun. This is great. I don't have to take it to the next level. Instead of blowing up in an emotional tirade because I was triggered and I'm wanting to defend myself, I can take a moment and I can pause and I can breathe and I can say, hey, there goes my hat. I can take a moment to pause and breathe and say, you know what? I need to step away for a second. Not because this topic isn't important, not because I'm trying to avoid talking about what needs to be talked about, what needs to be discussed, not because I am trying to avoid something, but because I need to gather myself for a moment, to give myself pause, to face and feel the emotions that I'm going through right now, and then come back with a clear mind so I can discuss what needs to be discussed without being triggered. Because there's something valuable in a conversation that we're about to have. You see, those things are possible. Those things are possible. And once you start to learn and value yourself, once you learn to take those lessons, those valuable lessons for what they are, you can say, you know what, you taught me your lesson. Thank you. As painful as it was, whether it be physically, emotionally, or whatever, thank you for the lessons that I learned. I no longer need to hold on to those painful emotions. I no longer need to replay these scenarios in my mind. I no longer need to be powerless in these moments. Because this is the new reality. This is my new power. This is who I truly am. I truly wish that nobody would have to go through these traumatizing experiences in life. And I also don't believe that God is up there orchestrating them, saying that I'm going to do this to you, I'm going to do that to you. No. I believe there's forces outside of that as well that play a role in that. And some people believe that in other lives, people believe that we have multiple lives. Some people believe that before we come down into this physical form, that we pre-set up certain scenarios. Because there's something that we want to learn in our spiritual life, our eternal life, that's going to draw us closer to fuller understanding of who we are as a spiritual being. Believe what you may, but there are lessons. Life is a journey. It is about learning. It is about learning who we are. It's about learning our divine nature, because we are created in the image of God. It is about learning our true value, because God created us. He fearfully and wonderfully made each and every one of us. He knitted us together in the wombs of our mothers by combining the ancestral DNA of one parent and the other to create a unique, beautiful, and glorious individual who is part of a larger spiritual family. You see, your value is so valuable, you're so precious, you're so precious to God that for those of you who believe in what Jesus did on the cross, we just came out of Easter, that Jesus came to earth for those of you who believe, and I believe there's more to this as well. But he came because you were valuable. A lot of people want to teach that you're worthless, that you're not worthy because of the sin in your life. You're not worthy because of this and that and whatever else you've done. See, that causes trauma as well. But telling somebody that they're not worthy, that's the biggest bullshit line in the world. Jesus came and died because you are worthy, because he wants to reconcile you with the Father and onto himself, because they are the one. You see, you're so valuable, you're so precious that he gave everything for you. It's not because you're not worthy. It's not because of the sin in your life. You see, it happened 2,000 years ago. It happened, and it was for all time. For even the ones who were before Christ. It was for all. So he knew when he created you. He knew when he put you together in that womb. And like I said, if you want to believe in the idea that that your story was predominantly laid out slightly before you were born in the spiritual realms, he knew what you were going to go through because he sees all. He knows all. He sees all the probabilities, all the possibilities. And he gave us this story of hope, this story of love, this story of sacrifice, knowing that we're going to go through trauma in our life, knowing that we're going to make mistakes, knowing that we're going to fall short at some time, because that's what life is about, making mistakes. You don't learn if you don't make mistakes. I mean, you can learn through successes as well. You learn from both. But what I bet you, if you were to reflect on your entire life, what were some of the biggest lessons that you learned? They're probably through the mistakes that you made. So you don't have to continually relive the trauma. You don't have to continually relive these things in your mind, beating yourself up every single day or whenever these events happen. You don't have to continue doing that. Take the lesson for what it is and move forward. With that, the weather's changing, just as we change in life. Until next time, much love.